Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I believe, if you'll indulge me, I'll be glad to remind the individuals at the beginning of each meeting that they should avoid any conflicts of interest, and whether any member knows of a conflict of interest coming before the committee today. And for the record, Mr. Chair, it's yourself, Commissioner Davis, who serves as your vice chair, Commissioner Weiss and Commissioner Lyerly, who serves on this committee. Commissioner Solomon is absent today, but you do have a quorum, and Mr. Chair, I don't believe that anyone has acknowledged or noted a conflict of interest. In addition to that, Mr. Chair, as you know, and as those of you who were in the room earlier, I believe as everyone heard me say for Group 1, that the consideration of civil penalty remissions request is part of your quasi-judicial authority, meaning that in addition to avoiding conflicts of interest defined by the State Government Ethics Act, you should also avoid any impermissible legal bias. An impermissible legal bias is something that prevents you from considering fully the matter with an open mind, and also it requires that each member consider each matter based on the record before them. As I stated earlier, the committee considers requests from individuals or entities who have been assessed a violation of law or rule by the Secretary or the Secretary's delegee. The Secretary considers 8 factors that are listed out in the statutes, and specific to this committee, it's 143, North Carolina General Statute, Section 143, 215.6A, and for, 215.6A, and this committee, as is Civil Penalty Remissions Committee 1, is formed by statute, which is 143B-282.1, and the committee, in considering these factors, have to consider 5 factors in addition to the recommendation by the division director. Those 5 factors are whether one or more of the civil penalty assessment factors, which are the 8 that are considered by the Secretary, were wrongly applied to the detriment of the petitioner, whether the violator promptly abated continuing environmental damage resulting from the violation, whether the violation was inadvertent or a result of an accident, whether the violator had been assessed civil penalties for previous violation, and whether payment of the civil penalty will prevent payment for the remaining necessary remedial actions. There are 2 coming before the commission or the committee today. One of whom has asked for an oral presentation, and in your normal operating or normal practices, Mr. Chair, as you well know, the staff comes up first and makes a presentation, and then the individuals requesting oral presentation may come up and present their information. As you heard me say earlier, this is not a finding of fact issue. The facts have been stipulated to, and your consideration is confined to the factors provided in statute. And with that, Mr. Chair, I'm happy to answer any questions that you or the other members of the committee, including the new ones, might have. And otherwise, I'll be quiet and let you conduct your business as you normally do so well.
Just real quick, where are the factors for remission?
The factors for remission are in the same statute that requires the committee to be constituted, and that's 143B-282.1. That one has both the 8 factors that must be considered in 282.1. And that contains both the 8 factors that must be considered by the Secretary and the 5 factors that you must consider, plus the recommendation of the department.
Okay, we're going to get started, and we do have 2 new members. And what I would like to do is go around and let everybody introduce themselves. And really, my preference with this committee is first name basis. So I'm David.
Donna.
Just want to introduce yourself.
Kim?
Sorry.
Kim?
Jill.
And representing the state.
Steve Hall, Technical Services, Section Chief for DAQ, and Mike Abrazinskis, Director, DAQ.
And before Lois does something that hits me in the back of the head, I just want to remind everyone to please make sure to speak into the microphone, including our folks in the department and our violator today, the person requesting permissions.
Okay, we're going to get started on the agenda. First of all is CP 2212, and I will ask Steve to give the state's comments.
Okay, I think it's almost afternoon, so good afternoon, commissioners. GNS Trees is 22004.
Mr. Hall, I believe we're starting with first one.
Oh, I'm sorry, going with the other one. I thought I heard the other case
CP
number.
22-11.
Okay, yes, that's good. So, case 2211. It's a case against Randy Brent and Ross Nichols. And on January 13th, 2022, Ms. Karen Couric of DAQ received a complaint concerning the open burning of synthetic materials consisting of tires and household garbage at 425 Fiber Acres A Street, Cleveland, Rowan County, North Carolina. On January 19th, Ms. Donna Cook and Ms. Sandy Shearer of DAQ inspected the site and observed the remnants of materials on the property of Randy Brent Nichols and Ross Nichols, consisting of 6 tire rims and synthetic material, which did not exceed 2 pickup truck loads, which is kind of a standard for our penalty tree. On January 25th, 2022, a notice of violation, notice of recommendation for enforcement letter was sent to Randy Brent and Ross Nichols, citing the violations discovered during the inspection. No written response was received to the NOV NRE. On May 4th, 2022, the DAQ director, Mike Abrazinskis, issued a civil penalty assessment in the amount of $750 plus $358 in investigative costs for the above noted violations, and it was delivered by certified mail, delivered on May 7th, 2022. The DAQ received a request for remission from Randy Brent and Ross Nichols dated May 11th. 2022, the request included a justification for remission request and a waiver of right to administrative hearings and stipulation of facts. On June 9th, 2022, DAQ Director Mike Abrazinskis reviewed the information contained in the remission request and found no grounds to modify the assessment. And Mr. Ross Nichols did request oral presentation before the EMC and is here today. So based on the facts of the case, DAQ does not recommend remission.
Steve?
Okay.
And I will ask to the whole group. Do we have Mr. Ross Nichols present? Come forward, sir. Make your comments.
Hello. I'm Ross Nichols, and Randy is my brother, and the reason his name is on the house and the land is because I'm disabled. He's not here, and I was informed yesterday he didn't have to be here. I got a phone call yesterday, said it turned 11 instead of 1. I'm guilty of being ignorant. I'm the one that had the fire. It was a big brush fire. Lightning struck a persimmon tree, a wild cherry, and a maple, and I was cleaning it up. It was mostly brush, but there was I bought one of those abandoned storage units to see what it was all about, and it had military clothes and paperwork in it. before the fire was ever even started, I went to Cleveland Fire Department, their big new fancy fire department, to get a burn permit. And there was a guy in our mopping and said, we don't do that anymore. I'm used to getting burn permits from the community grocery up there, which no longer exists. I've been at this same resident on and on, but it's been my residence since 1976. The fire department came out. I was out there with a water hose, but when they got there, I was in the house using the restroom. And I came out and helped them put it out. My buddy was going to his house to get his tractor. We were going to move it out and make sure it's all out and everything. Then the sheriff's department came out because the fire department got called. They investigated it. I have the officer's name and number. It's Officer Stoner from Rowan County Sheriff's Department. He said that I was found not at fault because I didn't know what I could burn and what I couldn't. And to the best of my knowledge, the only thing in that pile was a bunch of stuff out of that storage unit from the 70s, which was mainly military clothes, which I didn't know I couldn't burn, and all his records, maybe his shoes, but there was no tires in that fire. There was 2 rims sitting close to it that my military son, who's out of the Army now, but he was wounded twice, when he was coming in from Afghanistan and Iraq, he would stay in a camper on the outside of the house because he couldn't stand to stay in the house. Like I said, he was wounded twice. He used the old 76, 77 car rims off of a Camaro as fire rims. And he would a lot of times sleep in a sleeping bag on the ground outside because he has that post-traumatic stuff. But I'm ignorant of what I'm getting accused of because I didn't know I couldn't burn any of that stuff. Since then, and the Rowan County Sheriff came there, he told me I couldn't bury the stuff. Gary come up there with his front end loader and scattered all the stuff out. This was before whoever it was come up there, and I have a question about that. And we scooped it all up, put it in a dump trailer, carried it to Rowan County landfill, and deposited it. It cost me $38.70 for 2 trips. Of course, there was other stuff in the second trip, but the first trip was nothing but what that's, even the limbs and stuff. And then this lady, whoever she is, said, I just found a note on the door. I immediately that evening called her, my brother called her, and my ex-wife called her. And she has to this day not returned her phone call. That's my problem. Nobody's tried to get in touch with me. And I've tried everything, but the Rowan County Sheriff's Department come back out there. I had another acquaintance of mine that owns Fox Lane Horse Farm bring materials out of the barn, which is sawdust and horse manure and stuff like that, between 60 and 75 loads and put in there. And I've completely redone the whole area where the fire was at and planted seeds, grass seeds. Like I said, I'm guilty of being ignorant, and I tried to get a burn permit to find out what I could burn. But all the thing in there that I know of was that stuff out of that storage unit, and it was clothes and military papers and stuff. There was no tires. I mean, if they were in there, I don't know how they got in there, and I ain't seen no pictures of them, and I don't know nothing about it. And like I said, I even told the police department, the sheriff's department, if I'm guilty of something, I'll pay for it. But I'm innocent. I'm guilty of being stupid. I didn't know and now I found out you can't even burn cardboard and paper. I didn't know that. I've been there since '76. I live out in the country. It's my land. And I helped put the fire out. But like I said, the only thing as far as tires that I know of, or wheels, was rims from an old Camaro that Jason used as fire rims in the yard. And they were in that area because it's out next to the garden where the wood was, the debris was being burned. And I just threw that junk out of the storage unit on it because it's full of mice and stuff where it'd been sitting since the 70s. And the only reason I know that is because of some of the paperwork. And I even contacted the storage unit I bought it from to see if they wanted all that stuff back to return to his people, and they said no. And if I knew it caused all this, I'd have took it to the dump or the landfill to get rid of it. That's all I've got to say. I'm guilty of being stupid. And I've tried my best I got the letter again last week. It says, if you got any questions, call this number. I've called it 3 times to see if Randy had to be here, because he don't even live there. He's just on it because I'm disabled. I inherited it from my mom. I took care of her. She was from September the 10th till the 28th of this month, being 90 years old. And I took care of her because that's the last thing my daddy asked me till the day she passed and left me. And I inherited the house and the land. And it's just in my and Randy's name because I'm disabled. And all I got to say is, I'm guilty of being stupid. I did not know. But there was no tires or nothing like that in there. There may have been a couple of shoes from that storage locker, but there wasn't no tires.
Mr. Chairman, could I ask a couple of questions?
Absolutely.
You mentioned the tire registry there uses fire what?
Fire rims. He built a fire in them when he was in from the military, just to build a campfire.
Oh, just around the base of a campfire? Is that what you're talking
No,
about?
he laid the rims on the ground and put the wood on top of them.
Okay.
A fire pit, a metal fire pit.
Fire pit. Okay.
And there was either 2 or 3 of them, and they went to the landfill too. All this went to Rowan County landfill. And I've since come in there, or Gary has, and he's no longer with me. He went with my ex-wife. But scraped it all up, put it in a dump trailer, took it over, and then come in with between 60 and 75 loads of horse manure and stuff, and re-sowed the whole thing. And the sheriff's department, this guy come back out and says, well, you've done more than we told you to do. They said, clean it up, and I cleaned it up. I'm ignorant, that's all I can say. I did not know I couldn't burn that stuff. But I'm going to say again, there wasn't no tires in there, to the best of my knowledge. And I still to this day have not seen any sign of them other than those fire rims. And Jason used them to build a campfire.
I have a question. With respect to the date of the fire, when were you finished with the cleanup of the area? How long did it take you to clean it up after the fire?
Well, Gary and I both are disabled, maybe a month. I can't give you that exact day, but yes. But he wasn't there when the fire department came out. He had went to get the tractor. He lives in Statesville. He went to get the tractor then, and actually he's the one that actually started the fire to burn this stuff. But we were going to spread it out so it wouldn't get out of control, and it never really got out of control. Just a big bunch of limbs and those clothes. And I was already out there with a fire hose when the fire department showed up, and I'm sitting here. When I walked out of the bathroom out of the house, I looked at him, I said, what is going on? And I did go up there and ask them for a burn permit. And I was just informed today that you can get it online now. I did not know that.
I will note for the record, in the pictures, I don't see tires, I see rims.
The exact same thing. I want to ask Steph about that exactly. Perfectly agree with you on that.
That is a common practice with the Boy Scouts. I was a scoutmaster for 8 years, and Jason was an Eagle Scout. He used them for campfires. Low impact.
Yeah, actually, I would ask the staff about that.
Me?
No,
You done with me?
Does any committee member have any other questions or comments for Mr. Nichols?
If that lady from Mooresville, I couldn't even understand why somebody from a different county come over there. To this day, I have never seen this woman, and she's not talked to me. I have a problem with that. I tried to resolve this. Their representative will not contact me, and they at least 5 calls, one from me, one from my brother, and one from my ex-wife, plus another one from me. Nobody's contacted me except y'all, and they just called yesterday and said they moved it from 1 o'clock to 11 o'clock, and I asked them then if Randy, that's the only reason Randy's not here. He was going to take off, he works at Freightliner.
Thank you.
I just wanted to ask about that. I had that same question that Commissioner Davis just mentioned, because all I see is just bare rims. I don't see anything that looks like the burned tire on either of those rims. So is there any, do you have any evidence that it was actually burning a tire?
I think in this case, to answer the question, no, we don't have any direct evidence of the actual burning of the rubber off a tire. The complaint mentioned tires, and then there was some charred, of course the snow had fallen, and there was some charred area around where the rims were, but no, we don't have any evidence that the rubber was burned off those rims.
Well, I mean, I can understand the rubber burning, but you got steel wire in those tires, and that would burn.
Right.
No steel wire.
No. I
Right.
don't see any-
Yeah.
That's why I said I don't see anything that indicates there was any tires actually burning.
Yes, you are correct. We do see the steel metal pieces left over after tires at times. So, but the snow in these pictures covered over some things.
I understand that. I think that's not the best situation to try to take photos of.
Mr. Chairman, I have a question for Mr. Hall. Just, you've already confirmed this was a complaint-driven inspection. It looks to me like in your exhibits, though, that this is in a residential area, that in addition to the home where the petitioner lives, that there are other houses in that neighborhood pretty close by. And I guess the concerns for the Division of Air Quality, which is a little bit different from that of the fire department or the sheriff's office, is the emissions that come from open burning of just about anything. And in a residential area, am I correct? Would it be fair to say that's the Division of Air Quality's main concern about open burning?
Right, and any synthetic material being burned would be a violation. But tires are treated a little differently on our penalty tree than other synthetic materials. But you're absolutely correct that the smoke from the burning of any synthetic materials is problematic if it gets. Well, it's problematic for the person doing the burning, anybody that lives on that property, and potentially the neighbors as well. Yes.
And it looks like, at least from the calculations that I'm seeing, that this is 3% of the maximum penalty was
Yes.
assessed as far as the civil.
Based on the $25,000 per day per violation.
Yeah,
Yes.
I wanted to confirm it was
Yes.
that 25,000 is the max. Okay. Well, thank you.
And I add one thing to that. The house, there's not a house within
Yeah, I
2,000.
need you to come up to the microphone, sorry.
This development was supposed to have been development back in the 60s. My daddy bought all the land around me. I'm the major landowner around there, and there's not a house within 3,000 foot of where the fire was. You can check the records. I own most of the land around there. Across the road, there is a house on the other side of my land right beside of me, but up there where the fire was at, 3,000 or 4,000 feet or more, maybe even a quarter of a mile, is where the next house is. And I own everything up in front of them. There wasn't any houses anywhere within a quarter mile.
Just for the record, I'm looking right now at page 14. For the record, I'm looking at page 14 of the package, and I see the burn pit's marked. There's a house to the right of the burn pit, and then it may be your house to the.
That's my house, and then Julie's is on the other side of me, and it's 500 to 1,000 yards from my house.
I believe I see your house and two other houses in this particular exhibit.
No, you shouldn't be able. If you can see my house, you shouldn't be able to see but one house, and that's Julie's.
Again, I'll just reference page 14 of the exhibit.
Can I see that
Yes,
picture?
Here it is.
Right here's the burn pair. This is my building. This is my house. How did you get that picture? This house is supposed to be up here.
This should be off of GIS or it's off the Raleigh County website. Oh, sorry. Yeah. I wasn't talking into the microphone.
Wait a minute. This is on Park Road. This is Alice Weaver's house. It's behind my land, and there's a row of trees right here. That's on a separate road, that house. I'm sorry, I didn't take that one into consideration. That's Alice Weaver's house. It's behind me on a separate road. I'm sorry for that. I did not think about the one on the other road.
Okay, committee, we have heard from Mr. Nichols, and we've the first penalty was $5,000 with the initial cost of $290. Remit, so I suppose the Nichols have remitted $1,000.
That's the other case, I think, Chairman. This one's 750 for the penalty.
So these numbers are wrong.
No, sir, I think you just might be looking at the second penalty.
Okay. So let me restate that. The penalty was $750, the initial cost was $358. Remission is nothing, so a total of $1,108 is at stake here in our decision. So, committee members, what is your decision? I need your comment.
I'm just asking for a reduction, because I'm on disability.
Well, Mr. Chairman, I think it's at least a serious question of whether the tires were burned here. It looks like to me, I don't see the evidence of it, so I would at least want to reduce, if not eliminate, this penalty. I mean, it sounds like we're not talking about anything that was, I mean, let me give you a little bit of background on this, because I've got a neighbor who burned some really bad stuff about a year and a half ago, and I had to stick the department on him. So I am not a fan of open burning, to say the least. But this situation looks like one where I think we may be going, this penalty is more than is required here. And so at a minimum, I would at least reduce it, if not perhaps even eliminate it entirely.
Mr. Chairman, if I may, Mr. Hall, has the penalty been assessed against these property owners previously?
No, there were no prior violations.
That's another reason.
Nothing.
That's so by statute, if a previous violation has been assessed, then you're without authority to reduce it
Right.
to zero.
But there hasn't been, so that's just a factor I would include here in any final decision. And to the extent that we don't really have any clear evidence of tires being burned there, it's like number one is implicated. It's not probably applied. And continuing environmental damage, I don't see that either under number two. So like I said, I'm inclined to, well, I just propose to eliminate the penalty.
Do I hear a motion?
Yes, sir. I move to eliminate this penalty to zero.
Okay, the motion before the committee by Commissioner Carter is to eliminate the penalty.
Oh, let me ask you a question. I'm sorry. Before you go forward, yeah, what do we do about the costs? Are
Those are not, those are assessed in conjunction with the penalty.
right? But do we have the authority to eliminate them as well, or not?
If you're asserting that the penalty itself should be reduced, and that would leave in place the cost, which give me a second to go back to that, of $300, the enforcement cost, which is $358. I don't know that you have the ability to remove those costs completely, but it would be a zero penalty with $358 investigative costs.
All right. It sounds like that's what it would have to be. So my motion is to eliminate the 750, and I guess we don't have any authority to do anything about the investigative costs.
So your motion, if I may restate it, is to eliminate the $750 penalty, which means that the $358 cost remains Mr. Nichols' liability. Is that your motion?
Correct.
Do I hear a second?
I'll second.
Heard a second. Everyone that would agree, please say aye. Aye. Everyone disagree, say aye.
Aye.
Okay, so we're three ayes and one no, so the motion passes. And the penalty is eliminated. The two Mr. Nichols are still responsible for the cost of $358.
So, Mr. Chairman, if I may, just for clarification, so there won't be any confusion or surprise when the decision is rendered or codified or written down and sent. It'll be a reduction of 750, remaining 358 in enforcement costs.
Do we need to list the
Yeah,
Just the factors.
Yeah, yes, Commissioner Davis, thank you for pointing that out. I wrote down from Commissioner Carter that his motion was under C1, that the factors have been applied to the detriment of the petitioner. Incorrectly.
No, that's correct, and I also included C2. Whatever, all right, just go with C1.
Okay, any other comment on the CP 2211?
For the record, my position in not completely eliminating the penalty is because it was complaint driven, and there were other houses in the vicinity.
I'm going to ask you to speak into the microphone.
Again, I missed my opportunity to discuss after Mr. Carter made his motion and had it seconded. But while some reduction appears to have been appropriate in this case due to the confusion over the burning tires, the reason I opposed the total reduction is because this was a complaint-driven investigation, and the emissions from these types of fires in a residential area aren't something that can be mitigated. So it's important to get the word out to the community, and putting it out or stopping the fire, whatever, the burn. It's the release of the emissions that DAQ is concerned about. So again, just to clarify, I think a reduction was appropriate, perhaps not the entire penalty in my view. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Okay, we will move to CP 2212, and I suppose Mr. Hall will speak to that.
Yes, sir. If you could, can you hang out for a little bit longer? And I'll tell you what comes next. All right, so this case is against GNS Trees, and this case came to DAQ's Asheville Regional Office from Paul Buchanan of the Fire Marshal for Avery County, and then also DJ Whitson, who's the North Carolina Fire Service Ranger for Avery County. Mr. Whitson responded to an open burning event near the office of GNS Trees on December 2nd, 2021. The property is located at 6051 U.S. Highway 19E in Newland, North Carolina. And he stated that he observed the open burning of railroad cross ties as well as bags of garbage that appeared to be covered with Christmas trees. On December 13th, 2021, Mr. Whitson, the Avery County Ranger, emailed a picture of the area where the open burning had occurred near the office of GNS Trees, and the email stated that the pile consisted of cross ties, Christmas trees, what appeared to be household trash, such as drink cans and plastic, as well as other woody debris from machine piles. The approximate size of the pile was 75 feet by 50 feet. On December 17, 2021, the notice of violation, notice of recommendation for enforcement letter was sent to GNS Trees, citing the violation. Written response was received from the suspect on January 5th, 2022. On April 25th, 2022, DAQ Director Mike Abrazinskis issued a civil penalty assessment in the amount of $5,000 plus $290 investigation costs for the above noted violations, and it was delivered by certified mail. DAQ received a request for remission from GNS Trees dated May 23, 2022. The request included a justification for remission request and a waiver of rights to administrative hearing and stipulation of facts. On June 9th, 2022, DAQ Director Mike Abrazinskis reviewed the information contained in the remission request and found grounds to remit $1,000 off the original $5,000 penalty. So with investigation costs, the penalty was reduced to $4,290. And now it comes before the commission We did not receive a request for oral presentation in this case, and DAQ does not recommend any remission beyond what Director Abrzenskis remitted it in June, which was $1,000 again.
Any questions for Mr. Hall?
Yeah, real quick, since there's no one here representing the other side, can you remind me what, I forgot what their explanation was for this and why they shouldn't be penalized even though they didn't show up?
Let me find the response. Well, I found the original response first. They don't mention the railroad cross ties at all in any of their responses.
I thought that was.
Yeah. And so in most of the things that they claim are about household trash, they weren't aware that it was in there. They're going to purchase a grinder to dispose of the debris in the future.
Any other comments or questions from committee members?
Mr. Chair, thank you. Mr. Hall, again, even though this particular burn incident was referred to DAQ by various fire officials, again, DAQ is not responsible for putting out fires. Is it fair to say, again, it's the emissions,
Right.
the unfiltered emissions that come out that is the concern of your folks?
Right. And in this case, the 3 calls came into the fire marshal's office, one from a middle school nearby, one from a nursing home nearby, and a driver who knew that there was a current burn ban in place for that county.
Oh,
So-
thank you. That reminds me, I did see in the report that this also happened during the time of a burn ban.
Yes.
So, all right. Well, I'm prepared to make a motion.
Well, let me ask you a question first, but I'm curious then why the $1,000 remission already?
I'm not sure.
Okay.
Maybe it's because
The-
of the grinder.
Maybe Mike, I hate to turn to you. You remember the case, the remission case? Details?
A consideration was the purchase of a tub grinder for future proper processing of the materials. But certainly in the initial case, the facts that were just described that are in the record with regard to proximity to a nursing home, a school, and pictures of the rail ties in the record smoldering were a factor in the original assessment.
Well, yeah, and those are really a concern to me, and I guess I'm willing to go along with it, but I'm not sure that if I offered a motion to add that 1,000 back in would work. So I guess I'm willing to go with your decision. And the tub grinder, okay, if they actually do it and use it, that certainly is a good thing. So if you want to go ahead and make your motion, I think I know what it is, but I'll support it.
Okay, thank you. I move to uphold the director's decision regarding this remission request and no further remission, but the penalty stands at the $4,000.
And I second that motion.
Okay, we've got a motion and it's been seconded to leave the penalties exactly as they are today. Do I hear any vote? Everybody agree, say aye.
Aye.
Everybody disagree, say aye. It's unanimous. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
What's that?
Could I have offered a motion to accept the remission that already been agreed to by, or adopted by? Can you do any further?